Hey there. As always, this is for entertainment purposes only. I'm not an expert, nor should this be construed as any expertise in legal, financial, or therapy, mental health, whatever you want to call it. Just FYI, the next weekly lesson of building healthy relationships and communities is now live on the YouTube channel Along the Way by GDA. This week is all about boundaries, super important. So take a look if you're compelled, and please share it with anybody that you think would be helpful for their own journey. All right, on to the next step now. As I've shared throughout this journey, I've done a lot of work on my shadow side at this point, processing the proverbial baggage that I was carrying around for way too long. I was feeling much lighter and happier. I was still in Costa Rica, and I was more of my authentic self than I ever had been in my entire life. I was stronger, better, and loved who I was. Again, more than I ever had in my entire life. I was really feeling it and really starting to love life. I reflected on my gratitude for my own history with everything that I learned, coming from a place of love for everything that happened, and who I was, and who I was turning into. Again, it's not like I completely changed. I just started to embrace exactly who I was and love myself. I talked about it in an earlier video, but when I was at Arthur Findlay for my first class, I took an assessment from an instructor, and I think I told you guys a little bit about that when she told me about talking to mom and then did the video about that. And anyway, I digress. Based on that assessment, she told me they go over your gifts, what you have gifts in, what your potential is. And she told me I had healing gifts. And so based on that, I had signed up and registered right when I was there for another class at Arthur Findlay I was going to say now, but this isn't now, this is 18 months later. But then it was at this point in time when I was still in Costa Rica, it was time for that class, or at least to start moving towards the class. I feel like I probably confused you all in the video. Anyway, follow me here. I'd really enjoyed Costa Rica, but now that I was feeling really good, it was time for some new digital nomad experiences. Shake up the energy, new energy, if you will. I decided before I went to the class in the UK that I would stop somewhere that I had never been and always wanted to travel to for about a week. So I booked my travel to the UK via Ireland. It was actually where my ancestors are from. I had never been there before in all the traveling I did, so I was super excited. I really thought it would resonate with me, and I was excited about going. With that decided and done, and after I booked it, and I always book at the last minute, you get way better rates, despite what anybody tells you, because I don't really care, how I go, where I go, great rates. With that, I was booked, and I spent a little bit of time on my own, following some topics that I'd been curious about. Just did a quick little research. So I did the research around what some people call the 5D versus like the 3D or the Matrix. Basically, we're all living in meat bodies, right? I did a little bit more research on quantum physics and the philosophy that all of us sign up for soul contracts and lessons as we're in this Earth school. Super interesting stuff. I've told you before, I'm a closet nerd. Then, in my process, I decided to reflect on some additional 3D stuff. I realized that even in my evolution, that I wanted to work a little bit more on balancing my masculine and feminine sides, particularly my feminine side. And to do that, now that I had a newfound love of my body and the skin I was in, and that hadn't happened in pretty much ever in my life, I reflected on, the basics, the logistics, makeup, clothes, food, 3D shit, if you will. And I had never been a big fan of makeup, except when I was getting really fancy for events, right? And I realized that hadn't changed. I still wasn't a big fan of makeup. I'm someone who just values how you expend your energy. And for me, wearing makeup was expending time and energy that was totally wasted. I was going to say kind of like making your bed, but I actually do make my bed. So, although I do think it's a waste of time. I decided that still was true. I didn't give shit about makeup, and I like my face naked. So, it just wasn't going to go into my proverbial time pie for my daily, shenanigans. So, makeup was out. Still felt the same. That hadn't changed. And then I reflected on clothes. And clothes, on the other hand, were a bit more complex. As you can tell, I'm a comfy utilitarian who wears what I want. I always have. And I don't believe in wearing something that isn't comfortable, that I feel like I look good in or I'm comfortable in. That said, as I was reflecting on clothes, I was thinking about all the Costa Rican ladies who were just wearing simple, cute little sundresses. And I knew, because I have well-defined curves, that even the simplest of dresses could end up making me look like a hooker with my curvy self. And so, just based on my curves. And so, given that I had worn suits for a large part of my professional life, I decided I was fine for now in my athletic wear as a digital nomad. But I would spend some cash on clothing that I loved and that embraced and showcased my curves instead of hiding them like I had done for my entire life. And then shoes, my passion, shoes were always easy. I always liked flip-flops and boots. And honestly, my boots usually have super high heels, much to the chagrin of my family most of the time. And that wasn't going to change. And so I decided to get myself a couple new pairs of boots as well. Again, that was still the same. As you're going through this assessment, you'll find that you definitely evolve and grow, and then some things are just innately you. Shoes and my love of shoes and my passion for shoes hadn't changed over the years. It was the first time, actually, as I was reflecting on this, in my entire life, that I didn't care about dieting. I've been on a diet pretty much since I came out of the womb. And for the first time, I noticed in several months, as I had embraced my body, I really didn't give a shit. I ate what I want. And honestly, by this point, and you can see it in the videos, compare the first one to I don't know, video 7, who the heck knows, count a couple months. I had already lost 35 pounds without even thinking at all about what I was eating. And I was eating exactly what I wanted. I was actually reflecting on I love ethnic flavors and was fascinated by cooking that was super simple, but flavorful, fast, and an experience. And so as I'm thinking through all this and reflecting and, kind of, again, 3D logistics, I decided to treat myself more to ethnic food. I was missing my favorite cuisines, Ethiopian, Indian, Thai, and none of them existed in Costa Rica, at least that I knew about where I was. And I was super excited that I was headed to Europe soon because there was a plethora of choices there. So I knew there was plenty of great options, and I was headed there soon. With some of those things out of the way, I thought about what was next on my personal learning plan. By now, you guys know, as I'm sharing this journey, I was kind of digging, evolving every minute, every day. And so I decided for once to, most of this has been channeled. It's not like I was following a rule book or following a checklist. This kind of evolved over time. And so it was really the first time that I said, okay, what do I want to make sure I learn? And I was really having fun with it. So I decided to create a checklist. And as I'm doing that, I realized I had spent enough time clearing out my shadow side for now. That keeps evolving. And I had made a lot of room for what I call light, right? You have dark and light. Just like I shared before, we're an integrated mix of masculine and feminine, right? Goal is to be balanced. Same thing. You're dark and light. Everyone has a dark side and a light side. And so I realized I've been focusing on making room for all this light, right? But I also have a dark side too. And so, as I've shared many times, I was now dedicated to helping other people embrace their own ish. It's the reason I've started this channel in the first place. And so as I was thinking through it professionally and personally, I wanted to make sure I was focusing on my growing and my healing and my evolving, but also I've been studying this, right? So how can I help other people? And so I decided to do two things at once. I decided to set up a kind of a personal human experiment on myself. Not like I haven't been doing that the whole time. I've been sharing for the journey, and that's the first time I thought about it that way. But I decided to make the list of topics that I needed to explore and that drew me. One, to help other people, and two, because they drew me. Both because I was interested in them and to help my knowledge base for this channel and helping other people with their own journeys. So that beginning of the list, and I just started the list, was with gaining, and I think I mentioned this on the earlier video, more knowledge of BDSM, tantric practices. I decided, given the feminine stuff, that I should probably do a photo shoot and do fancy modeling. And just for the hell of it, be really girly for a week. See how I felt about it. And then I also wanted to evolve my knowledge base of energy because, as I've shared before, energy is everything. All right, so I was done with my start of my checklist. I packed up my stuff, said a quick goodbye to Coweta, the town I love in Costa Rica. I knew I'd be back. It's my favorite place in the world. And to all my new friends, said a quick goodbye. I hate goodbyes. Told them I'd be back soon. Took a several-hour bus ride back to the airport, and off I was to Ireland. So until next time in my Ireland trip, have a fantastic week. Take care.